Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. My name is Brandon, and welcome to this weekly news roundup for October 22nd, 2023. Nearly every week, I take a look at some headlines, news stories, and articles from across our great state. Of course, you can find all the links to freestatecolorado.com to the news stories and articles we're discussing this week. Lots of great interviews up. Of course, the petition to remove Tim Hernandez from the state house, calling on the state house leadership to do so. Interviews with some school board candidates, and lots of resources about the Liberty Movement here in Colorado and some of our great school board candidates this year. Check them out at freestatecolorado.com, including a libertarian guide to the ballot initiatives this year. Pretty easy. Vote no on both of them. If you want to read why, check out that article on freestatecolorado.com. But let's go ahead and take a look at some news stories, see what's in the news this week. First, I'd like to talk about from cbsnews.com, October 20th, 2023. Colorado board that scrutinizes ballot measures raises questions over whether Proposition HH does what it says it does. This is from Sean Boyd, the great investigative reporter, political specialist here. As ballots arrive in the mail, a state board is raising questions that may give you pause when it comes to Proposition HH. The ballot measure deals with property taxes and future tax returns, among many other things. The legislature referred it to the ballot, calling it a property tax reduction. But after scrutinizing a ballot measure copied from Proposition HH, the state title board found it's a tax change, not a tax reduction. Wow. There are two ways measures get on the ballot. Citizens bring them, or the legislature does. When the legislature brings an initiative, state lawmakers decide what it says. When it's a citizens' initiative, the title board writes the ballot question, closely examining every word to make sure voters know exactly what they're voting on. That is what they did this week with Initiative 88 by the Independence Institute. John Caldara is the president of the libertarian-leaning think tank. This measure is basically a carbon copy of Senate Bill 23-303. As you know, Senate Bill 303 is Proposition H for 2023, Caldara told the board. He was so convinced the title board would never approve Proposition HH as written, he put it to the test, bringing what is essentially a duplicate measure at its core, Initiative 88. Like Proposition HH, Initiative 88 says it's, quote, concerning a reduction in property taxes, but the board says that's not accurate. Some of these provisions actually increase the tax, said board member Jeremy Berry. Board member Teresa Conley agreed that concerning a reduction in property taxes wasn't how the question should be worded. Would it be concerning changes of property taxes? Caldara says substituting changes in property taxes for a property tax reduction sends a very different message to voters. It was very telling to me that the very first thing they did was take out this reduces property taxes to this changes property taxes. The board didn't stop there. As it tried to draft a ballot question, it noted how complex the measure was. The ballot question its staff came up with ended up being 140 words compared to Proposition HH's 55 words. The new question went into more detail about what the measure would and would not do. It removed, quote, expanding property tax relief for seniors, for example, and added creating new subclasses of property. That is closer to what the title board would have given Proposition HH if it went through proper channels. But in the end, the board refused to set a title for Initiative 88, saying it referred to a law that doesn't yet exist. But they wouldn't tell CBS News Colorado which law it is. You can't create a title for something that doesn't make sense. So there you go. This was a great and clever way to show that Proposition HH is baloney. You know, it's very deceptive. It's lying in what it does. It does not reduce property taxes. It changes property taxes, changes how taxes are collected, and ultimately does lead to a tax increase over the next 10, 15 years. So really good on John Caldara, the Independence Institute, and the team there to expose that Proposition HH, if brought forward by citizens, by people who just concerned citizens, activists who wanted to get this on the ballot, the title board, the state of Colorado would not allow you to put this on the ballot as it is written, as the state legislators have put it on the ballot. So definitely tells more to the story. Proposition HH is deceptive, is wrong, and these politicians, these legislators in our state government, including Jared Polis, who pushed this initiative on Colorado voters, should be very ashamed of themselves, and hopefully they're exposed for their their deceptive behavior here. Let's go ahead and move on. From the centersquare.com, October 18th, 2023. Rate of violent crime increased last year in Colorado, FBI data shows. Now it's terrible. You would think with all the new gun control, with all of these new police powers to go after fentanyl and these other things, you would think that crime would be going down, right? But no, crime is going up. Violent crime, especially the most horrific type of crime, right? At the same time that violent crime is increasing in Colorado, these Colorado politicians are trying to take away our right to keep and bear arms, our rights to defend ourselves, our families, and our businesses. And it's really shameful behavior from this legislative class who wants to disarm law abiding people. Violent crime is increasing in Colorado. Violent crimes in Colorado increased last year, according to data released this week by the FBI, while property crimes in the state remained level, but still significantly above the national rate. Well, that's not good. The data released Monday includes all crimes reported by state and local law enforcement agencies to the Bureau's Uniform Crime Reporting Program via the National Incident Based Reporting System. In Colorado, 234 of 249 law enforcement agencies voluntarily submitted data for 2022 through NIBRS. The overall rate of violent crimes, which includes homicide, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault, in Colorado increased from a rate of 480.4 per 10,000 residents in 2021 to 492.5, according to the FBI's data. The national rate for 2022 was 380.7. Aggravated assaults went up from the rate of 326 to 350. Colorado's homicide rate increased from 6.2 to 6.4, which was slightly over the national rate of 6.3. Yikes. So that is rough. That is not good news. Learn how to protect yourself, learn how to defend your family, and don't let these politicians take away your ability to defend yourself. Violent crime is only increasing, sadly. Let's move on. From John Caldara as well, from October 18th. Complete Colorado, page 2. Complete Colorado's website you should be checking out every day to see some of the headlines and articles from across our great state. Odd Bedfellows against the Proposition HH tax hike. October 18th, 2023, John Caldara, as we saw on the other post there, other article. I'm not the smartest guy around. Just check my Twitter feed, now called X, and you'll see many, many of the most well-mannered people agreeing with me. But I think I'm safe in saying that if the teachers union is pouring gobs of money to pass a ballot question, it's most definitely not a tax cut. Has the teachers union ever endorsed a tax cut? No, of course not. When the ultra-leftist organization Progress Now endorses Proposition HH, there's a pretty good chance it ain't a tax cut. Likewise, when have they ever endorsed a tax cut? The always tax slap-happy Bell Policy Center is making sweet love to Prop HH, saying, quote, the additional revenue for schools under Proposition HH will help Colorado students catch up with their peers across the country. You see, additional revenue is a tax increase, not a tax cut. Even though Proposition HH starts with a very seductive language, shall the state reduce property taxes for homes and businesses? You can be sure it raises more taxes than it cuts. Turns out, a lot more. You see, when the legislature puts a tax increase on the ballot, they can write it any way they like, that means lie, to tempt you to vote for it. Indeed, HH gives the tiniest brief property tax relief, still with the highest property tax increase Colorado has ever seen, paid for by losing our Tabor tax refunds forever. So I assumed many short-sighted business lobbying groups would support it, or at best stay neutral. The Colorado chapter of the National Federation of Independent Businesses, NFIB, representing small businesses, the ones hardest hit by skyrocketing property taxes, did the arithmetic. Overwhelmingly, their members screamed no. They urge voting against Proposition HH. Property tax is a larger line item expense for these folks than for homeowners. If any constituency should have fallen for Polis's bait and switch tax increase, it should have been them. But a knowledge of basic math is powerful. Wow. Realtors are in the job of selling homes. Higher property taxes retard property sales. The easy call for the Colorado Association of Realtors would be to rubber stamp HH, yet they did not. They too are urging you to vote no. Why? Because they know if you have more money in your pocket, you'll have more money to buy a home. HH is the largest tax increase in Colorado history and will put homeownership out of the reach for generations to come. If that's not obvious, that's bad. If it's not obvious, that's bad for realtors. So HH is a colossal tax increase. Therefore, governments throughout the state must love it. The Colorado Municipal League, CML, represents the hundreds of cities and town governments across the state. They must certainly adore HH, except they don't. CML opposes it because of the unnecessary constraints on municipal authority to provide appropriate localized property tax relief and the restriction of municipal tax revenue. That's fancy talk for saying the state takes all the tax increase booty and doesn't give it to them. What about the other governments in Colorado? Counties must love HH. Again, nope. Colorado Counties Inc., the group representing the county governments, came out with a big middle finger to HH as well. So, which of Colorado's thousands of governments wins with HH's historic tax increase? Well, the state government wins by finally ending our Tabor refunds forever in just a few short years and keeping all those billions in dollars in exchange for a microscopic property tax relief. And some school districts win because the state will have more money to backfill their budgets. That's about it. Wow. So check that article out for more information. But of course, some humor from John Caldara. Love the attitude there. But yes, I mean, local governments are opposing it. Municipal governments are opposing it. County governments are opposing it. People all across Colorado are opposing Proposition HH. The only people who want it are people who want to increase our taxes, take away our Tabor refunds, and grow the size of government. So check that out. Share that with other people. Let's move on. Of course, can't not talk about Denver Public Schools. There's always some controversy with government schools here in Colorado, whether it's teachers lying, leaked reports, as we'll see here, or some other controversy that just seems to always be making headlines. From DenverGazette.com, October 14th, 2023. Leaked Denver Public Schools report shows conflict between reducing expulsions and frustrated teachers. A staffer said, "It is harder to return to play sports after a concussion than to return to a classroom after a threat of a weapon, violence, or a significant mental health episode." Wow. Government schools are dangerous. Government schools, of course, do not want to expel their students. They need the kids there to get that tax money, right? It's when they do those head counts, see how many students are attending. That's how they're allocated a lot of their tax money. So they don't want to expel students, even though they're threatening violence. I mean, this is absolutely outrageous. A perfect example of why you need to get out of public schools. Get your children away from these government institutions. A leaked internal safety report conducted in the wake of the East High School shooting in that Denver Public Schools has shielded from public disclosure lays bare the conflict between officials' efforts to reduce expulsions and frustrated teachers left to deal with the fallout. The draft report highlights a number of safety concerns. The Denver Gazette requested under the Colorado Open Records Act the contract with Principal Ed Consulting in the final report. District officials refused to release the report, citing attorney client privilege. The full report is roughly 30 pages and contains recommendations for the district. 9 News, the Denver Gazette's news partner, obtained an 11-page draft of the report. Deputy Superintendent Tony Smith commissioned John Youngquist, president of Principal Ed Consulting, to conduct an emergency management and crisis response protocols for 11 of the district's high schools, including East High. Youngquist, who is running for an at-large seat on the school board, declined to comment on the report, but he sent a statement to the Denver Gazette through his campaign. Let's skip his statement here. In an internal email to district staff obtained by the Denver Gazette, Superintendent Alex Murillo said the point-in-time snapshot in the Youngquist assessment was meant to seek out the safety concerns of our school leaders in conjunction with the development of our comprehensive safety plan. Murillo has been under fire for months for a series of missteps, which included an illegal executive session he requested and the firing of a popular principal at McAuliffe International Middle School who raised safety issues about being forced to conduct similar pat-downs as the one that led to the March 22nd shooting at East High. So as you can see here, some of the findings highlighted in the draft. Let's skip to that. The district safety plan, which has since been updated, is so high level it doesn't represent the reality of teachers and administrators. Safety plans have become a substitute for expulsions and student admission denials. Students don't see the district as responsive enough to behavior concerns by their peers. Deans and school administrators are not provided appropriate training and support. School leaders are unable to elevate to expulsion hearing students who engage in multiple violent actions. Wow. Because the district's sole focus seems to be on reducing suspension and expulsion numbers, and although schools work to represent real data, there is an inherent disincentive for schools to represent real numbers in the system, the report says. In one example, a staffer told Principal Ed it's harder to return to play sports after a concussion than to return to a classroom after the threat of a weapon, violence, or a significant mental health episode. So the schools care more about reducing expulsions, not as much about the safety of the students who go there. I mean, what kind of messages is sending to these children that they can get away with violent threats, get away with threats of weapons? Absolutely terrible. Get your kids away from Denver public schools in particular and out of government schools if at all possible. Let's go ahead and move on. So we looked at Denver public schools. Let's look at CU, the Colorado University that's getting all this press for its football team. It isn't doing that great. But nonetheless, this is from October 12th, 2023. CU Regents consider divestment from fossil fuels following public pressure. Wow. Public pressure, yeah, right. More than 100 people, largely students, have visited University of Colorado Board of Regents meetings over the past few months demanding that the CU system divest from fossil fuels. About 3% of the CU system's investments are in the energy sector, including oil and gas. CU has no direct holdings in any companies per state statute. On Wednesday, the University of Colorado Board of Regents Finance Committee heard two presentations about withdrawing the system's investments away from fossil fuels. There were two opposing viewpoints presented. Tom Sanzillo, the director of financial analysis at the Institute of Energy Economics and Fiscal Analysis, spoke in favor of divestment from fossil fuels and made a financial case for it. Nick Loris, vice president of public policy at C3 Solutions, argued divestment is ineffective and counterproductive. Sanzillo presented data to show that fossil fuels have underperformed in the stock market for a decade and have a negative long-term financial outlook. So as you can see here, there is a massive push to go after fossil fuels. This is not going away, as we'll see in another article here, but it's very unfortunate that CU students are buying into this propaganda to go against oil and gas industry. Of course, the thing that keeps the lights on, that keeps our businesses running, that keeps our economy moving. So many people would rather see fossil fuels, fall by the wayside and be replaced with extremely inefficient, all electric type of renewable energy sources, which is totally infeasible for a well developed society. Let's go ahead and move on here. TheGazette.com. Let's talk a little bit more about Proposition HH, of course. Biggest ballot issue this year, October 13th, 2023, updated October 17th. Gazette.com. No on Proposition HH, 10 reasons why. Thought this was a good little bullet point list. Of course, if you've been following freestatecolorado.com for a while, you'll know that there's been lots of information presented about Proposition HH and how terrible it is. Let's look at some of the top reasons here. Number one, it is a ripoff. Proposition HH lowers the statewide assessment rate on property for 10 years, yet it grabs billions of dollars in surplus revenue collected by the state that otherwise would have to be refunded to taxpayers under the state constitution. There you go. Colorado's Common Sense Institute projected the average two taxpayer household faces a 5,100 cut in refunds over the next decade if HH passes, while a median priced home would see $4,641 in lower property tax bills. If lawmakers extend the tax grab another 10 years, as allowed by HH, Coloradans would give up $42 billion, nearly double any property tax relief. Number two, it's a shell game. The public is being asked to vote for property tax relief and then to give up their tax refunds to pay for it. It's a classic scam. Number three, it's property tax relief light at best. Any relief won't come close to offsetting the soaring property taxes that could rise 50% for some homeowners when tax bills go out next spring. Number four, it's a windfall for state government. Only a fraction of the refunds the state keeps under HH will be used to backfill local governments for any shortfall in property tax revenue due to HH's temporary lower assessment rates. The rest will go into state coffers to engorge government. Number five, it guts the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. The Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, or TABOR, in the state constitution limits budget growth by government and requires refunds of any revenue collected over the limit. If HH passes, Common Sense Institute concludes, there are numerous scenarios under which Proposition HH would eliminate TABOR refunds entirely. Number six, it was drafted in secrecy. Ruling Democrats at the legislature hatched the plan with the governor's office behind closed doors and then fast tracked the bill to place the measure on the November ballot. Number seven, it might be unconstitutional. HH has so many moving parts, it might violate state constitutional provisions, limiting ballot proposals to a single subject. Number eight, it's bad for small business. A survey in August by the National Federation of Independent Business Colorado found that 90% of small business proprietors oppose HH. Nine, it won't lower the rent. Because property values and property taxes continue to soar, the cost inevitably will continue to be passed on to tenants. Number 10, it's a convoluted mess. It adjusts statewide property tax assessment rates, it withholds TABOR refunds, it backfills local governments, invests them with certain additional powers over setting mill levies. The list goes on. It's enough to leave you cross-eyed. Which is to say, if voters are left scratching their heads over this dizzyingly complex proposal, it's reason enough to vote no on Proposition HH. So, really good editorial there from the Gazette. Great bullet points. Pass that along to people in your neighborhood or community that might be fooled by Proposition HH's deceptive ballot language. Let's go ahead and move on here. Just wanted to talk about a solution. So Proposition HH is presented as a solution, deceptively presented as a solution to lower our property taxes here in Colorado, which are facing historic increases. There is opportunity, though, for local governments to do something about it. This is from CPR.org, October 13th, 2023. Local governments in Colorado are set to cash in next year. With property values skyrocketing, counties, cities, schools, and others could collect millions of dollars more in property taxes. But some local elected officials are asking, should they really accept all that new money? There's not a single taxing authority out there that planned on or needs a 45% increase in 1 year. And that's what we're facing here, said Teller County Commissioner Eric Stone, a Republican. So we have seen some counties, such as Douglas and Garfield, lowering property tax bills. There's an effort in Lakewood right now to do the same. So very interesting. But I did want to point out quote here from one of the leaders in our liberty movement here in Colorado, and that is Natalie Menton, of course. Let me find her spot here. So, Natalie Menton, a tax and transparency activist, wants residents to put pressure on their local leaders to lower taxes. She said she's training ordinary people to navigate the process. I think local pressure has way more impact than people realize, she said. Why should government profit off double-digit increases with pain to taxpayers? And I think that has a lot of impact when city councilors sit there and think about it. There are only a couple of months left for local governments to take action, but some argue that they can't do anything until after the November election because Proposition HH, if it passes, will have its own effect on their revenues. It takes away the ability of local governments, municipalities, counties, and special districts to make those decisions locally, which probably will be more impactful to citizens than Proposition HH, argued Kevin Baumer, executive director of the Colorado Municipal League. The group is opposing HH. So that's it. As you can see here, no matter what happens to Proposition HH, it's likely to mean a hectic end of the year as local governments try to decide how much property tax money they need and how they'll spend it. Local governments usually must decide on mill levies by December 15th at the latest. But if Proposition HH passes, the deadline will be extended to January 5th. So the point that Natalie Menton's bringing up is that local governments across Colorado have until December 15th to set their mill levy rates for the next fiscal year. This means that local governments right now have the opportunity to lower property taxes in their communities, but it's only going to happen with citizen pressure. So stay tuned. Natalie and myself will have more to talk about that as things continue. But check that article out for some more information, in-depth reporting. A couple last two articles here of the week. Says 82% of new cars and trucks sold in Colorado must be electric or zero emission within a decade, the state says. This is from the denverpest.com, October 21st, 2023. Absolutely terrible idea. This is an assault on the working class Coloradans across Colorado. It's an attack on the free market, an attack on car dealerships, car manufacturers, and it completely would decimate small businesses. The Colorado Air Quality Control Commission, what a Soviet sounding organization, the commission to regulate all of this, adopts a new rule designed to increase electric vehicles on the road. Absolutely crazy. Noel Phillips. When you visit an auto dealer's showroom in Colorado in the coming decade, most of the cars and trucks for sale will run on rechargeable batteries after state regulators on Friday approved a plan to increase the number of electric vehicles on the state's roads. This is an unelected commission, an unelected board deciding what cars can be sold in Colorado. I mean, this is absolutely anti American. The Colorado Air Quality Control Commission established a rule that will require increased electric offerings starting with model year 2027, and then by model year 2032, 82% of all new cars sold must be electric or zero emissions vehicles. The Commission also agreed to revisit the rule in 2029 to consider extending the requirement to 2035. The plan was supported by Governor Jared Polis's administration, of course it was, and is in line with his goal to have more than 2 million electric cars and trucks on the roads by 2035 as part of an overall effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Already, the state is requiring 40% of semi-trailers and other large trucks sold in Colorado to produce zero emissions by 2035. Now, the rule does not outlaw gas-powered cars and pickup trucks, so motorists will still be able to purchase and drive used cars or travel to other states to buy them. Wow, absolutely and utterly insane. This is absolutely crazy. It's hard to believe that people would even propose this idea. So what's going to happen? So a dealership doesn't want to sell. They sell too many gas cars. The state government's going to come down, knock their door down, repossess the facility. I mean, throw people in jail because they're selling gas-powered cars. I mean, this is insanity, people. This is an issue that needs to be opposed at every single level. And the governor and this commission, if they think they're going to pull this over on the Colorado people, they need to be mistaken. But let's move on. Last article of the week. ColoradoSun.com. Colorado Congressman Ken Buck is being evicted from his main Colorado office. The landlord is a major GOP donor. Buck, a GOP congressman from Colorado, said the eviction is because he refuses to support Ohio Republican U.S. Representative Jim Jordan's bid to become House Speaker. This is from October 20th, 2023, ColoradoSun.com. U.S. Representative Ken Buck is being evicted from his main Colorado office, where his landlord is a company run by a major GOP donor. I've been evicted from my office in Colorado. I have a notice of eviction because the landlord is mad with my voting record on this speaker issue, Buck, a Windsor Republican, told NBC News on Thursday. Buck's main Colorado office is in Windsor's Water Valley subdivision, adjacent to the Pelican Lakes Resort and Golf Club. The building where the office is located is owned by Pelican Point Business Park LLC, whose registered agent is developer Martin Lind, according to property and business records. Lind developed Water Valley and owns the Colorado Eagles minor league hockey team in Loveland. The state's campaign finance database and Federal Election Commission records show he is a prolific GOP donor. Neither Lind nor a spokesman for Water Valley returned an email Thursday evening seeking comment on the eviction. Reached by phone on Friday morning, Lind told a Colorado Sun reporter, "I don't talk to the press," before hanging up. Lind followed up in a text message, "We simply don't discuss our private client's business." In 2019, Lind held a fundraiser at his home for then U.S. Senator Cory Gardner, a Republican, that was attended by then Vice President Mike Pence. In 2022, he donated to Herschel Walker's unsuccessful Georgia U.S. Senate campaign, Joe O'Dea's unsuccessful Colorado U.S. Senate campaign, and State Senator Barbara Kirkmeyer's unsuccessful U.S. House campaign. He's also given money to Donald Trump's presidential campaign and political action committees associated with the former president. Lind did donate to Buck in 2016 and 2014 election cycles. So there you go. I mean, Ken Buck is losing all of his support, all of his allies in Colorado. I think this is a kind of a wake-up call for him. I don't think that he's running for re-election based on this, of all of his actions. I think he's looking for a gig in Washington, D.C., looking for the news media potentially. But very shameful that Ken Buck is putting his personal career, professional career ahead of Colorado voters, where the Colorado Republicans seemingly overwhelmingly support Jim Jordan for House Speaker. And of course, Ken Buck is now facing some consequences for refusing to support the will of Colorado Republicans. Well, thank you very much for your time this week. It was good talking to you. Glad you joined. We got some fun stuff planned ahead. Of course, make sure you vote no on Proposition HH, no on Proposition II, and we'll see you next time.